People are finally starting to say the quiet part out loud, and that's what makes this moment dangerous for the rest of the NFC. Because once the conversation shifts from are the 49ers good to are the 49ers the scariest team in the conference, there's no going back. And Ryan Clark didn't tiptoe into that territory. He walked straight into it and started pointing at the tape like it was evidence in a courtroom. Because this wasn't just another win. This wasn't just Brock Purdy having a good night. This was a fully operational machine putting the league on notice. And the uncomfortable truth is that a lot of people don't want to admit what this looked like, because admitting it forces you to reevaluate every comfortable narrative you've been leaning on about the NFC, about contenders, about balance of power, about who you really don't want to see when January hits. And that's why this breakdown matters so much, because beneath the praise, beneath the schematics, beneath the compliments about leadership and resilience, there's a warning embedded in everything Ryan Clark said, and it's not subtle. It's loud, it's clear, and it's terrifying if you're anyone else in that conference, because the 49ers didn't just beat the Colts, they exposed something far bigger. They showed what happens when preparation, talent, confidence, and belief all collide at the same time. And when that happens, the rest of the league doesn't get a vote, they just get to react. What happened was simple on the surface but explosive in meaning. The San Francisco 49ers went into Indianapolis and walked out with a 48-27 win that never truly felt competitive once it found its rhythm. Brock Purdy threw 5 touchdown passes on Monday night. The offense barely took a breath. The Colts defense couldn't get off the field. And Ryan Clark sat there calmly dismantling the idea that this was just another regular season result. Because it wasn't. This was a statement game layered with context, history, and timing. And that's why it blew up across the sports world immediately, because it landed right in the middle of the NFC playoff race, right when people were trying to figure out who they trust, who they fear, and who they might be underestimating. And before we go any further, if you want more breakdowns that don't sugarcoat what's really happening in the NFL, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because this is exactly where the real conversations live. Ryan Clark's breakdown didn't start with Brock Purdy, and that's important, because he opened by talking about Philip Rivers, and that alone set the tone for how serious this conversation was going to be, calling Rivers a Hall of Famer, a leader of men, someone who could coach in the NFL whenever he wanted, and emphasizing how impressive it was for a 44-year-old who had been away from football for 5 years to step back into the fire and compete the way he did, because that contrast mattered. It framed the game as a clash between wisdom, experience, and inevitability. And even in praising Rivers, Ryan Clark made it clear that leadership alone isn't enough when you're facing something this well-oiled, because as impressive as Rivers was, the stage belonged to Brock Purdy, and that's where the entire discussion pivoted. When Ryan Clark started breaking down Purdy, the language shifted from admiration to analysis, and that's where the fear factor creeps in, because he wasn't talking about luck or system quarterback cliches or riding talent. He was talking about understanding, anticipation, daring throws, and improvisation layered on top of structure. And that combination is what separates good offenses from terrifying ones. Because it means you can't just take away the first read. You can't just disguise coverage and hope for a mistake. You're dealing with a quarterback who knows what Kyle Shanahan wants, knows what the defense is trying to do, and still has the confidence to attack anyway. The specific red zone breakdown Ryan Clark walked through was surgical, explaining how the Colts played cloud coverage, how defenders were supposed to pass routes off, how George Kittle was bracketed and still found space because of chemistry and telepathy, and how Christian McCaffrey was freed up because one defender's eyes were in the wrong place. And none of that works unless the quarterback processes it instantly and delivers the ball on time. And that's the part people keep glossing over, because it's easier to credit the scheme than the execution. But Ryan Clark made it painfully clear that this was both Shanahan and Purdy operating on the same frequency, attacking exactly what they expected to see and doing it without hesitation. And then came the bigger implication, because Ryan Clark didn't stop at the play. He zoomed out to the conference, casually mentioning the Rams, Seattle, the 1 seed, and the fact that by the time Christmas passed, the picture might look very different than people assumed. And that's when the question stopped being about one game and started being about identity. Because San Francisco isn't sneaking up on anyone anymore. They're not hiding behind injuries or excuses. They're staring directly at the top of the NFC and realizing the path is right there. The conversation with Trent Williams only reinforced that feeling, because when the players talk about not even needing silent count on the road, about opposing teams having to adjust to their fans, about the faithful being everywhere, that's not fluff, that's psychological pressure. And when you combine that with an offense that hasn't punted since November, you're talking about control, rhythm, and inevitability. And that's where teams start to panic. Because you can survive talent, you can survive noise, but sustained dominance wears you down. Trent Williams made it clear that this offense works because all the pieces are finally on the field together. George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and a quarterback who processes everything at warp speed. And when he talked about Brock Purdy's resilience, his calm, his confidence seeping into the rest of the offense, that wasn't coach speak. That was a veteran lineman explaining why this group believes it can beat anyone, anywhere. And belief is the most dangerous ingredient in the postseason. The historical note about Purdy throwing the first 5-touchdown Monday night game by a 49ers quarterback mattered more than it sounded, because it put his night in the context of Montana, Young, and the legends of the franchise. And even if you hate comparisons, even if you roll your eyes at history, you can't ignore that kind of company. And Ryan Clark didn't hype it. He let it sit there, because sometimes the numbers speak loud enough on their own. As the discussion drifted toward the NFC race, the Rams and Seahawks chaos, and the realization that San Francisco suddenly had a direct path to the 1 seed, the tone shifted again, this time toward focus, tunnel vision, and discipline, because the players themselves aren't celebrating yet. They're acknowledging how hard the road still is. 3 straight playoff caliber teams, no margin for error, but also no fear. And that combination is what makes this team scary, because they're confident without being reckless. When Ryan Clark talked about Kyle Shanahan calling this the best coaching job of his career, given the injuries, the losses, and the emotional blows like losing leaders on defense, it added another layer to the story. Because great teams aren't just talented, they're adaptable. And Shanahan keeping this group together, focused, and dangerous despite everything they've dealt with, is a reminder that coaching matters when the pressure rises. Even the lighthearted moments, the chants, the jokes about not being done, the Wolf of Wall Street references, all of it fed into the same underlying message. This group isn't acting like a team hoping to make noise. They're acting like a team that expects to be there at the end. And expectations change behavior, they change preparation, and they change outcomes. Ryan Clark never directly said the 49ers are the scariest team in the NFC, but he didn't have to, because everything he broke down pointed in that direction. The offense that can't be stopped, the quarterback who sees everything, the play caller who stays one step ahead, the veterans who believe, the fans who travel, and the path that's suddenly wide open. And when all of that comes together, labels become unnecessary. The reason this conversation feels controversial isn't because it's exaggerated. It's because it forces uncomfortable comparisons. It forces teams like Philadelphia, Dallas, Seattle, and Los Angeles to look at San Francisco and ask themselves if they really want that matchup, if they really believe they can slow this down. And deep down, that hesitation is the answer. This wasn't just a win, it was a warning, delivered calmly, broken down clinically, and backed by film. And as the season barrels toward January, the scariest part for the rest of the NFC might be that the 49ers don't look surprised by any of it. They look ready, they look focused, and they look exactly like a team that understands what's in front of them and believes, without flinching, that it's theirs to take.